This podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.
Billy Garvey, that is Survival Reflection, episode 114. What are people going to learn this week?
So some really beautiful, like they're always beautiful, but some really beautiful, honest, vulnerable stories that came through, which I think is, I don't know about you, just hearing those helps me. And having an insight into what other people are struggling with, having the same kind of conflict that I am internally, that inner voice, all that kind of stuff. And then, some practical things from us, but especially from listeners about what they do, why they think about
Love
things.
some of the survival tips, especially about the ecology of the floor in people's homes and just let the toys fly. Children will just navigate that as they go through. I thought that was lots of fun.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Like I'm trying not to make them all really emotional at the end, but but possibly the toughest back to back. From one that came in 15 minutes before we hit record.
I know, you love that. That's Billy style. Guys, we hope you really enjoy the episode. We'll be back with a new topic after this one. Don't know why I'm even saying that. Everyone knows the cycle, Billy. They'll get along with it. Enjoy the episode, team.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician. And I'm Nick, a developing parent. We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids. This is Pop Culture Parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is it, Daddy? And what does it do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.
Good morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. You're, as always, therapeutic. Chaotic 12 hours, so it's nice to be with you.
I've busted out the leopard print today.
As always, it is. It's amazing.
We got a particularly early start, so I needed to fire myself up.
Yes. Yeah. And I, it's really funny. I sent you all the questions. The earliest I ever have in 3.5 years. I was like, hey, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to get a chance to look at the questions and actually think about what I want to talk about and all that stuff. And then just doing your trick of holding the baby while Annalise is doing the put down. But it was her turn. And Evie fell asleep straight away, which is, Evie's often the one that struggles. And I was like,
Huzzah.
we're golden here. 45 minutes later, Charlie's still awake.
There you go.
Had to tap. I tapped in. Hour and a half. I was in the cot with Charlie and
Just playing.
So everything will be on the fly.
Just getting your eye poked. I
well,
love
it's
that.
interesting, because
Squish.
He's become so affectionate. It might come up actually about, one of the questions actually, I reckon I can tell a story that relate to it. But he's just like, he calls me mama because it's just one of the words he has. He's like, mama, mama. And he just keeps leaning on me and like kissing me and all this stuff. And I just couldn't really get frustrated. Whereas the night before, when it was my turn, I just couldn't get them to fall asleep. And I don't know if you ever do this. You just get so annoyed.
Plenty frustrated.
Well, you just get so annoyed that you're like,
so
and it actually, I knew what I needed to do to help Evie fall asleep, but I just couldn't do it. I was like, no, I'm not going to because I lie on the ground in between them now because I feel like it's unfair to be lying in the bed with Evie, stroking her back or doing a face story or whatever, or singing, which is what I do now. I sing songs. And Charlie's in the cot on his own, so I lie on the floor between them. And Evie was really struggling. Charlie was asleep, but I was like, I just refused to change track. You know what I mean? I was like, nah, Evie, it's really, And then finally, I was like, you're an idiot, and I just got up and I think I did letters on her back, and she fell asleep within 2 minutes. And I was like,
Do you ever do the setup? Do you set it up though? Do you go, all right, guys, how long am I spending with you tonight, and what are we doing? Is it 5 songs each?
a
Or 2
little
songs
bit. It's
each?
really funny. Annalise's
You tell
mum
me.
was down when Heidi was born, and she accused me of being a marshmallow because of how soft I am with the kids. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to be remembered as something, I want to be remembered as that. And obviously, I disagree with this permissive, misunderstood, gentle parenting.
You're a cool dad.
Because I'm a cool dad. It's shifting, like the bedtime thing. But mate, it's even funny, which will come up in one of the... We got... People send them in so late that even this morning in the dark when I was running Melfi and getting ready and stuff, 4 new longs came through. And one of them I've put in, so you haven't seen it.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Are you going to do it?
I'll do it, yeah.
Okay, 'cause I don't
Sorry,
know.
it's a reflection.
Gotcha.
And Yeah, and all the songs that I sing are songs my mum sang to me, but they're all these like really old, quite sad songs. You probably don't know Streets of London.
It's like Irish.
Yeah, Puff the Magic Dragon, like, which is sad as well. And then, yeah, other ones like The Fox Went Out on a Chilly Night. And I saw it, and it's like they're all pretty. And so Evie now wants sad songs. She's like, no, even sadder.
Oh, God.
So, yeah. So just that Irish, like guilt and sadness and misery.
I want a cold winter. This mild winter's terrible.
So it's so funny because she's got such an amazing imagination. But anyway, this is meant to be a reflection. So sorry, I'm dragging this out.
Yeah. So
I
this
promise
is
I'll
our
be tight.
survival episode, Billy. Reflection.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
lots of amazing stuff came through. Like,
Give us a quick background on the survival topic.
yeah.
What's
So
about?
go back and listen if you haven't. Like, go back and listen to everything because it's all valuable. But no, survival was really about a lot of people coming in and saying like, it's great to hear all these strategies and like what you're doing in clinic and how to actually support our kids, but actually I'm feeling guilty and maybe even a bit of shame about the fact that I can't do it. So it was about like, how do we go back to basic principles, that idea of like safe, loved and celebrated. We might talk about that a little bit more. Thinking about like, yeah, a lot of the kids that I've seen in clinic, this is relevant to either them themselves, the teenagers that I saw, or the little kids and the parents that just feel like they don't have what it takes to do the stuff that we've spoken about. And we talk about that in clinic actually, like even with our fellows, that you got to be careful, like going, do this, and everything will be sweet. And the parents like, I can't do the first one.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just trying to get through the day. But I think there is this interesting element, which we'll talk about more, of like, it's beautiful actually. You haven't seen it. What we're going to end on is amazing.
Okay.
It just shows us it's a beautiful way to think about it, just to warn you, from a family that means a lot to PCP.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I think you'll realise who I'm talking about as it comes.
Who that would be. Hey, all right, we're going to kick it off.
Yeah, let's kick it off.
You're opening the lead.
I'm opening. Okay,
Yeah.
great. That's how
You were
how
talking
much
reflections, looking at me. I was like, hold on. I think he knows he's first go off the rank here.
this is how organised I am, mate.
That's okay.
Okay, cool.
That's right, isn't it? Your reflections one?
You are right, mate. As always. As always.
Bank it, record it. There we go.
Hi, Nick and Billy. Congrats on the gorgeous new bubba. It feels like we've had a kid.
We've had a kid, yeah.
So, congrats on the gorgeous new bubba. I've been a long time fan of your podcast. I'm so grateful for the space you create for parents to reflect, learn, and try again. Your latest episode on Gladiator and survival really struck a chord with me, and it feels like the right time to share my story in the hope it might help other parents see that it's never too late to shift from measuring my kids by their achievements to focusing on safety, love, and celebration. I grew up in a world driven by achievement. The better I performed, the more loved I felt. Whether it was swimming, running, debating, or in the classroom, I pushed hard to get it all right. I dreamed of being a teacher, but became a chartered accountant because my dad said I should. You get the picture: high standards, relentless striving. Naturally, I carried that same energy into parenting our two gorgeous children, just 17 months apart. I wanted them to eat right, sleep right, and be perfectly behaved in public. If one of them refused to swim when we got to a lesson, I felt frustrated and embarrassed. When my eldest started school and came home with a red card for discipline, I cried for hours, not out of compassion for him, but from shame, wondering why I was failing as a parent. Thankfully, a shift came. In 2018, I moved from auditing into leadership development, sparking a journey of self-discovery and a love of podcast. One day, I listened to an episode about unconditional love. My kids were 6 and 5, and I had a shocking realisation. I'd never explicitly shown them that my love had no conditions. That night, I made a conscious decision to change. At bedtime, I told my 6-year-old son, "You know I love you for who you are, not for what you do, right?" He paused and said, "But not if I smoke, Mummy." My heart broke. Even at 6, he believed love might have conditions. I hugged him and promised him that even if he made choices I didn't like, my love would remain. That moment changed everything. Fast forward now, recently while preparing for a leadership role, I said aloud, "I wish I had this awareness before my kids were born. I think I would have parented differently for those first few years." My son, now 13, looked at me and said, "Was I 6 when you learned it?" He knew exactly when I started to shift, which is so powerful for me, as it is never too late to try a different way. And the truth is, I'm still shifting every day. I still catch myself falling back into old habits and striving and measuring my parenting by their achievements. But now that I'm aware of it, I try to parent with safety, love and celebration. And when I get it wrong, I do my best to say sorry and repair. It's a never-ending journey, but I know we're moving in the right direction. Thank you both for the conversation you spark. They help parents like me keep showing up, keep reflecting, keep choosing connection over control.
Wow. Kids are amazing.
Yeah, I just thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, ripper. Hey, reflection number 2, Billy. Hi, doctors Billy and Nick. My wife is a superhero, a newly graduated nurse, the fiercest protector of our 2 children, advocating for them via school and supporting their teachers and wellbeing principal to understand how best to understand our children. We've recently started working with a play therapist who has supported the advocacy for our 10-year-old son at school. He now has a fidget chair, is allowed brain breaks, is heard and seen for who he is, and is absolutely thriving. My wife is a PCP OG and was using quotes around the house like drop the demand and increase the support. Connection first before anything. Scaffolding. My parental intellectual inferiority complex was feeling rattled by the jargon and my arrogance, defensive nature couldn't get my head around the concepts and language. Fast forward 12 months and I'm a dedicated student of PCP and parenting, thirsty for all the insights and guidance you offer. I could listen to you both all day absorbing the conversation. I'm often in the seat with Nick, trying to answer Billy's questions and wouldn't know where to start. Nick's approach to answering is awesome and allows us developing parents to actively absorb and practically think about the lesson or theory and its application. Over the years, I've had my own mental health struggles, which I tried to deal with alone and pretty unsuccessfully. Since listening to the podcast, I've kicked off a program of self-care, including monthly psychological appointments and occasional kinesiology appointments when my nervous system reaches breaking point. All have helped me understand and identify I have strong ADHD traits and RSD, causing pretty high levels of stress and anxiety. Understanding this has changed my life. I had to pull the car over when you were going into the topic of neurodivergence episode. Full body goosebumps and a tear of acknowledgement. I feel like I can move out of survival mode and create more capacity for patience with my kids who deserve the dad I'm developing into. I'm on an active journey of shedding my authoritarian parental style and trying to become an authoritative one. It will be a long-term, probably lifelong journey, but I'm here for it. The awareness of mistakes is key to change. I fail more than I succeed, but I'm committed to change. It's no word of a lie that this podcast is a critical protective factor in supporting my mental health. My wife and I reference your podcast weekly and always debrief on a stressful day and talk about how we could have done things better. In an unbelievably rare reverse ninja moment, when my wife was showing signs of frustration, putting our daughter to bed for the 13th time last night, I said to her, "Let her catch your calm." We both laughed, and that's exactly what happened. Every time I go for a run along the Frankston foreshore, I'm connected to the podcast, building myself as a dad and a man. I can't tell you how grateful I am to have been introduced to the podcast and your book, Billy. From the bottom of my heart, thank you both for your time and effort and expertise you bring to each episode. I'm grateful for the PCP community for sharing incredibly powerful reflections along the way. Please keep doing what you're doing. You're changing more lives than you will ever know. Your impact will be multi-generational. You should both be incredibly proud of the community you're creating.
Amazing. Great read too. Oh,
I really hit it.
Beautiful energy.
Well, I got the questions early.
You stopped stitching me up with the 1 a.m. questions. Oh, wow. That hurts.
It wasn't designed to hurt you.
No, I'm joking.
I was just I knew that one was coming. And
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well done, mate. Oh, my God. Now I'm worried how I can match your reading. I'm going to put a lot of performance into this. And, mate, connection to the Frankston foreshore, that's where I started my running journey.
Really?
20-something years ago when I was 3. But, yeah, for listeners who don't know, that's how I grew up and ran along that beach.
So long ago.
All right. Heineken Billy. Appreciate your work, boys. I saw you post for your new podcast about survival when I was on the floor of the bathroom, pitch black, crying my eyes out for feeling like a failure of a father. To give you context, I work as a GP here in Melbourne. I'm coming off a rough week, having had a patient die unexpectedly and another nearly commit suicide. I recognise within myself that I didn't have the emotional capacity to control what is my usual demeanour, but I persevered. Come through to yesterday, and the build-up of my 3.5-year-old throwing tantrums and fussing over dinner had me at breaking point after his bath. He came up to me and asked me why I was crying. I didn't have the courage to speak to him. My wife took him to bed and I stayed in the bathroom so distraught. I'm very much like you, Billy. I take the weight of the world on my shoulders and will always blame myself if something goes wrong. Coming off your conflict episode, I'm one to often run away from my issues as opposed to tackling the issue head on. My wife is incredibly pragmatic, and even though it's the perfect yin to my yang, I didn't need her logic and reasoning that night. I collected myself over the next hour and simply asked my wife to be there with me. No words, just presence. I've collected myself today, and having considered yesterday one of my twice yearly emotional breakdowns, I often review my life in the following way. I often tell my patients to do the same, and I hope it helps anyone else out there. I like to see myself in all the roles I carry in my life. My role as a doctor, a father, a husband, a son, a brother, a friend, and most importantly, an individual. I only have so much energy to invest in each one, and when I see myself struggling in one role, I know I need to redirect my energy into others. There's only so much we can achieve as one person. Quite often I need to advise myself or others to be more selfish. In this instance, I will take a small step back from work and invest back into being a better father and a husband. Please continue the great work and good luck with the new baby, Billy. Nick, despite what Billy says, stay strong to the black and white.
Yes.
For overseas listeners, that's the footy team that Nick's currently going for.
Coming off a very brutal loss last night.
But yeah, beautiful, don't you think? Do you think about your different roles in your life? Like, being a dad, a partner, a friend, colleague, son?
I don't chunk it down in that way and think about where am I coming up short or doing really well. I'd focus on the shortcomings, which is a lot of what these survival people
Same.
do.
Yeah, like
I don't.
Without getting too deep too quickly. Yeah, I feel like a failure as a son that I can never come back from now. Failure as a brother. I feel like I, work really hard on being a good dad. I think I'm okay at that, interestingly. Isn't it funny, even giving myself that compliment, I have to throttle it a bit, like, and pare it back. And then I work really hard on being a better partner, which is interesting because a lot of the longs that didn't make it, like Less Than 1% It Gets Read, a lot of the longs that didn't make it were about, like, I'm really worried about my husband. It was really interesting from a lot of, like, women saying I'm really worried about my husband, or my husband doesn't have the capacity to support me and all that stuff, which is why it's interesting that some of these really beautiful things came in from dads. But it's, and there's some really, like, big picture stuff that everyone's struggling with, and just that idea of, like, how do we actually be a bit more kinder and compassionate to each other, like, and also to ourselves. And I really struggle with this, so I'm like, this is therapeutic for me. So many people send in really beautiful messages directed at me, which is just like, it's amazing. It's like healing for me. So
it's going to sound bad. I don't know how to say it, but I'll say it. I don't think I'm that. I'm definitely not as good a friend as I used to be, broadly, but I'm good at the family stuff and I'm good with the partner stuff. Not the family stuff, my immediate family. I'm not good with my other family, like my siblings and stuff. Like, I don't see them. Like, I don't hang out and see them much. Probably, but I always wrote it off as, well, my kids are a lot younger than theirs, and we kind of, it's just all a bit ships in the night a bit. Not malicious. Like, I just don't. Do you know what I mean? But as a friend, like, you say, like, and it's fair, like, I don't reach out a lot. I'm like, if people reach out, I'll catch up with them, but I really kind of focus on home. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
And I don't know how it's got to that, but I used to be like out and I'd be doing stuff. I just don't see. It'd take my mates to reach out to me to catch up. I would never. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it sucks that you feel like that, because I've seen, like, listeners have probably heard how you speak about your love for your sister and how much you admire her. Like, you have a beautiful capacity when a sibling is struggling to come into them, like, unconditionally without judgment, and just how can I help? Like, which will come up. But yeah, and I think you are, mate. Any of us, like, and let's be honest, I shoot the flare up in the sky every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That I need a bit of support, and you're always like,
I'm always
"Sweet,
happy to
let's
give
go
it,
get a beer."
but I never like, like you and I, it's often we just don't, like I don't go, oh, let's plan something and go do something fun for a bit. Like I just do stuff on a...
Yeah, and you and I have spoken about that, haven't we? How like we used to be really good at like, early days of the pod and before that of just like getting a coffee at the really cheap crummy place. Well, maybe crummy's been up, but it was not
Not a bad establishment.
yeah, it makes every other coffee feel like it's got no coffee in it. But we really do need to work on that. And I think the hard thing for me is I'm so busy, but this is what, even going back to that thing, like, as a son and a brother, I feel like I've irreparably failed. But I would have said, I reckon, as a friend, if it wasn't for you, like you've given me this chance to build the confidence back in my ability to be a good friend.
You're a good friend.
Yeah, but like I believe you a bit because of you, because I've, and about like, being able to like, people who aren't perfect, still be friends with them.
What? Who's not the perfect one? Oh, I'm pretty special.
All right, let's do the shorts.
Let's do the shorts. Billy, how can I stop the guilt about getting through each day?
Yeah.
About just getting through each day. Damn it.
Yeah, do you feel that? I don't reckon you do, really.
No, I don't. How do I stop the guilt about just getting through each day? No, I don't.
Yeah, see, I think you just really, and you invest in this. This ties beautifully to what you just said. I think you pare back stuff and you're like, I've got to just family, this home, this space and all that stuff. Whereas I'm the opposite. I'm like, I don't really have time to do this pod. It's all in free time that I have none of. Like, and, Annalise doing all the parenting while I rabbit on about how important conscious parenting is. And I constantly feel guilty. I don't know about you. I run a gauntlet every fortnight until we get to this pod. And then I have this. I had the funny thing last fortnight where I went to my therapist straight after the pod. And I was like, this is such a untrue representation of what my time has been since the last pod, because I've had this like therapeutic 2 hours with Nick and I've kind of felt like I've achieved something. So I've got the pod recorded, whereas I'm kind of just getting through every day. Like I talked to you, how frustrated I was this morning because I'm like, I've got an hour with the kids every evening and I've got to like, get them in the bath, meal time and try and get 10 minutes of like just joy with them. And I've also got to pack for the next day and I just hate it. And then I'm packing in the dark that night or packing in dark the next morning. And this morning I woke the house trying to get ready in the dark and I'm just like constantly feeling that guilt. So I think the actual answer of like, how do you do it is what we talked about last time. Where is the compassion bit to ourselves? And I'm trying to think, how do I do it? It's really interesting. I was talking to someone at a kid's birthday party the other day and they were like, they didn't do it intentionally at all, but they were talking about, they've just had a little baby that's about the same age as Heidi. And they're like, yeah, that's their first. And they're like, yeah, it's really interesting. What we didn't realise is like we've been, sitting around on our phones, like on the TV, like watching stuff, just being a bit mindless and brain dead. But then you have this baby and you just never want to look at your phone again. You never want to watch anything. And I was literally in the moment, as she was saying that, I was reflecting on the day before and I get told Heidi, like often there's days I don't get told her. I get told Heidi for like 10-minute grabs, once or twice a day. And I was sitting there and I was going to my phone. She's eyes open, looking at me, and I was being drawn. I was feeling this physical pull to my phone, and I just felt so much shame in that moment watching this like mum bubble about how you never look at your phone when you got a baby and all that stuff. So I think that I've learned that was a good opportunity for me to feel that emotion, go like, I feel like I'm pretty crap, but to sit with it and be like, how can I appraise that objectively and be like, actually, it's probably because I'm just stressed and I've got a lot going on and blah, 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 and thinking about that. And you have to get to that point where you have the emotion, have the experience, and then try and understand where it's coming from and then get to the critical appraisal that's like, actually, that was just one moment where I was stressed. And also, how can I use it? How can I go to a healthy coping mechanism of be a bit more present with her? And I've been working on that, which has been really cool.
Cool.
Anyway, I won't give lots on the answers to all the shots.
Hey, Billy, can survival parenting hurt my kids emotionally, mentally, long term?
No, like I grew up in that. It wasn't that hurt me. It was it was other things. But I think if you can think about those foundational things of safe, loved, and celebrated.
Safe, loved, and celebrated.
Yeah,
I love that.
those are antidotes. Like we've talked about on previous episodes, but just having one parent in a house that makes you feel safe, one person you can speak to about your emotions, feeling like you're a part of a family that unconditionally loves you, like all of those things are shields of like adverse childhood experiences, things like abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. So, those are the foundational kind of barriers, walls that protect us from the bad childhood outcomes we worry about.
Cool. Hey, Billy, how do I parent when I've disassociated so hard I've become part of the furniture?
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because even you and I was very excited for the PCP to see this. We did a podcast together.
We did.
Wrote
First one.
I'm worried I'll never be asked again, where they're like, oh, Nick's actually an option. Because everyone's like, hey, Billy, we're just really checking out if Nick's free to come to this media. But remember, he said the same thing. Like he was like, yeah, I'm just dissociating.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm on my phone and I'm doing all that stuff and kind of being like that. So I think it is something that you can be aware of. And then the trick is like with our kids, what does success look like in the short term? Not I'm never going to look at my phone again while I've got my baby in my arms awake. It's just like, how can I make it a bit easier? Let's go put the phone in another room and just see if I can be for 5 minutes just present with her.
Yeah. My partner's pushing that at the moment. She's like, I think there's going to be a device drawer in our life. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. Yeah, which I think is fine. That's what we call behavioural strategy, which is like picking up like what a lot of the nudge theory guys, behavioural economics, how do you make it a little bit easier to not just go into those habitual things, but you have to also have the bit where you're like, what's a strengths-based approach? Why is it actually happening and all that stuff? So like that's especially neurodivergent kids are really vulnerable to being like, nah, you just can't have the iPad. And it's like, well, what if the reason that they can't get off the iPad is that they're so stressed about the bullying they're experiencing at school, whatever. So, you know what I mean? You have to kind of, think about it a bit more contextually than that.
Hey, Billy, how do I know if I'm in survival mode, if it's become my normal?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think it's not meant to always be hard. Like I think about, the family unit in the same way I think about the little kid, is that most of their experiences of effort should be successful. So if you're like, if every day you go into school is hard, if every put down is difficult, if every mealtime is fighting, like that is just survival. And remembering, like one of the things that I often ask in clinic is, are you enjoying your child? And like a lot of the families I meet in clinic say no to that. And if I ask them as the last time, some of them say years. And thinking about that shouldn't be the experience. And it's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's not because you're not a good parent.
Quickly on that one, what's a quick way to go back to finding how to enjoy your child when you're in that rut of I'm not enjoying it?
Yeah, so you've got to pick the easiest times. Like, you know what I mean? When we think about say parental preference, take that for example, where you're like, you don't
they
go,
want mum for the put down, not dad.
Yeah, so you don't build the bond in the hardest put down. You know what I mean? You build the bond in like, well, you really like mum sitting next to you for breakfast, but you get a little bit annoyed if she doesn't come. Let's make that daddy's thing. You know what I mean? And in the same way with ourselves, it's not like when I'm completely drowning trying to get out in the house in the morning, this is when I'm going to sit down and enjoy them. It's about, do you know what I mean? You just go, you give yourself a pass and be like, this is a time where this is the end game, that this is easier.
Right.
The short-term thing is where is a little bit of space to just enjoy this kid. And I don't do it with Charlie. Charlie's instantly a middle child but the other day, like I hate getting in the car and Annalise's dad was down. So we were rolling to dinner and there was no seat for me. So I was like, I'm going to grab Charlie and just catch a train and a tram. And it was awesome. It was like the highlight of my week. And it was just like, 30 minutes where I was on a train and then a tram with him. And he was just loving it. And it was really nice because everyone was like smiling and stuff about me and him playing on the train and the tram. And I just felt like the best dad. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to just enjoy him. And that has reinforced my bond with him. That has literally changed the way our brains fire together. That 20 to 30 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And it's really hard to find that.
I'll fire up the my key this weekend. We're going on some train trips. I want some of that. That's brilliant.
But do you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
a simple, like, little thing that I did because I had to. It wasn't an idea I came up with. I was just like, I don't want to get it on my own. I'm going to drag one of the kids with me.
Yeah. A follow up. How do I break the survival patterns that feel hardwired from childhood?
Yeah, so being aware of them is the first step.
Bang.
Like, yeah. So, yeah. And so much of this is built in our childhood. And it's really interesting. There's been some aggressive comments on, like, some of the stuff going up on my personal Instagram that has been, like, by a national broadcaster, so I can't change the comments and do all that stuff. I don't have the time to anyway. But a lot of it is people being like, nah, this is wrong. This is just soft parenting. A lot of that's from their own childhood. They're just like, I can't open up that box that, like, maybe I would be calmer and I wouldn't be getting aggressive at strangers on the internet if I'd had a bit more compassionate parenting, and it's not those parents' fault either.
No.
And also there's this really hard thing about, like, what if I've done wrong? You're going to hear that. We've already heard it in a reflection, but, the 6-year-old remembering about the smoking comment is when mum changed. There's always room to change, but you have to be aware of what's going on and where it's coming from. And it's just, we set up, like, I said to my therapist in that last session, actually, I was like, I feel he's like, there's this little vulnerable Billy that, hasn't recovered from everything that happened. And I'm like, I can't see that kid. I feel invincible. And he's like, yeah, of course you do. Your walls are so big and so thick that, you can't get anywhere near that little Billy. And that's my role, that's my job in therapy, is to get to little Billy and understand that, it's okay to look at that little kid. It's a really important thing to think about for a lot of the PCP community, is that where is this coming from? This struggle, this belief. Yeah, there's another beautiful one that's coming as well.
Okay, cool. Hey, how do I stop proving my worth by how much I cope with?
That's it. That's the one I was thinking of. I didn't know it was next. But it's an interesting thing. I don't think you have that problem, do you?
I try and bite off a few things. Yeah, no, maybe not.
But do you see your self-worth in how much you can push through adversity?
Probably not, no.
Yeah, like, I don't mean that. I think that's a
Probably not.
good thing.
no.
I don't mean that to be like, oh, you don't have problems. It's more just, it's quite a unique challenge, I think, for those of us that grew up with some of that stuff, where you're just like, this is your value, is that you can just face this. Because you've often watched a parent do it. Like, that was my mum's whole identity, was, that grit that she has, and I never saw her, even when she got diagnosed, I never saw her upset about it. She's never angry about it. You know what I mean? She was like told, she survived 18 months, but she was told you got 9 months to live in her early 50s. And she just went, cool, this is the next challenge. Do you know what I mean? I never saw her, she's like, got to get everything in order really quickly. Never saw her angry, never saw her upset. You know what I mean? And that's, I'm not accusing her or having a go at her for that, but that's kind of the coping mechanism and the way to face life that I've been brought up with because of that. Because I'm like, that's tough. That's what strong people do. But it's not, is it?
No.
Like, it wasn't. If only I'd seen her, if only she'd allowed herself the space to be like, this is really fucking unfair. I've had a really tough time and this is how it's going to end.
Okay, so you obviously, your aspects of your upbringing are really tough. Lots of it. The next question is, how do I raise kids to thrive without passing on my survival wounds?
Yeah, so I have to deal with all this stuff myself, like the
Yeah.
podcast, these conversations with you, therapy, like an amazing partner in Annalise, like self-compassion, self-kindness, what we talk about, mindfulness. Like, I was catching myself just yesterday. I actually realised I was doing it. I was getting frustrated about something and I was able to reflect back and think about internally, not look around and be like, this is crap. I was able to go, you're getting really angry and frustrated, and just being able to sit with that emotion. I also have to give space, just to bounce right off that point I've just made. I don't shield my kids from the difficulties that I'm experiencing, especially Yvette. You know what I mean? It's really important that Yvette sees an adult struggling because she's so smart that she's already masking. Yvette is already, when she's got a mate around and she's frustrated, and I know she's frustrated because I know that thing frustrates her. She hides it, she buries it. And I'm just like, no, I've got to show you that's cool. And people worry about, the goal should not be our kids don't have emotional difficulties. Sometimes our goal is the kid does just demonstrate emotional difficulties.
A kid, when your kid's frustrated, but then they don't act on it, is that a good thing?
No, like if it's simply of like they're internally frustrated, but they're not expressing it externally. That's not a good thing.
But you're then saying that they should express it in a way that's good. So like I got a kid that's like, he goes, oh, my mate's going to wear what I'm going to wear and I wanted to wear those shoes, but now they're going to wear the same shoes and I'm annoyed by that. Whatever the kid's reason is for being annoyed by that, they're just annoyed like, well, I wanted to wear those shoes. That was what I was going to wear, but now they're wearing them as well. And I had this thing the other day and I was like, oh, I think it's because they're like, you know, probably should have said, yeah, fair enough, you're annoyed. But I actually went the other way and was like, oh, it's because they're your friend. They want to look like you and act like you and have fun with you. And they thought that's a good way of maybe doing it. Maybe that's what they were thinking. And they were like, I got really annoyed, but I didn't tell them and I didn't get angry and I held on to it. And I went, good.
I don't think you've done the wrong thing. I don't think you've damaged her by trying to see the positive of it. It's just...
But like telling her it was good that she didn't act and get angry as well.
Oh, so no, but what I'm talking about is not she blows up at her friend.
Yeah.
And is like, how dare you wear those shoes?
Yeah.
You want her to be able to say to you, I was really annoyed that she wanted to wear the same shoes as me. And then you validate that experience. Because remember, up until like your 20s, you're still developing this skill set neurologically in terms of your higher functioning prefrontal cortex stuff.
Right.
Help seeking. We just want kids to help seek,
Okay.
not solve all this stuff on their own. You just want them to not bury a feeling, but to go, I'm really
So she did the right
struggling
thing. She
with
told
this.
me. She goes, I'm really struggling. I go, God,
Yeah, so you can do like, if you're going to do it perfectly, which
Do it.
I've never done,
Do it.
you're just like, hey, that must be really annoying. That must be really frustrating. That must have made you feel angry.
yeah.
But you're saying it in an open way so they can correct you, not you felt this, or this is how I would feel. Is this what you're experiencing? Is this what's going on in your head? You know, that, and giving them the space to just think about it. Like,
Can you hit them with the reframe at the end though? To
Yeah,
be
you
like,
can.
but I'll tell you what, I know it must have been annoying, but I reckon that's becoming a pretty special friend that wants to, you know, bit of mimicking, bit of, what is it,
you can,
copying's
but
a great...
you can also go, if you want to go really like upper echelon stuff, be like, I wonder why they did it. I wonder what they were thinking. But they've got to be calm and open to it.
They were.
But do you know what I mean? That
What were they thinking?
perspective
More
take.
questions. Okay, good. Open questions.
Perspective taking. Like, do you know what I mean? Because you actually don't know. You don't know why the other kid did it.
No.
But you want to give her the critical appraisal skill of like, maybe it wasn't. And she might be like, because she hates me. Because she just wanted to annoy me. Because she just thinks she's cooler than me and all that stuff. And you go, God, that must suck to feel like that. Yeah, okay. What other reason might there have been? What else could have been going on?
It's just a pair of shoes.
Yeah, like maybe she wasn't even thinking about it. Maybe she didn't even realize you were going to wear the same things. Or maybe they look so good on you when you showed her. Do you know what I mean? And you're going maybe. You're not being like, well, she did it because she loves you so much. You know what I mean? You can't just brute force the...
Okay.
But mate, it's beautiful. I don't mean to... You're doing really well.
No.
It's just that's some slight stuff on it.
That's good. Hey, Billy, can we get a bust of Nick as merch?
You love the bust idea, and I just showed you before we recorded the Photoshop. Feel free anyone to send in more compliments about the Photoshops, the jokes that I
Get
tell.
a few plaster molds made, and you could get to send you some paints.
You look great as a bust.
$49.95. Go straight into my pocket, Billy.
Everything, like, it's really beautiful, actually. No one's ever criticised, like, some of the stuff that costs money, like the Patreon subscription or some of the other stuff that GGM's going to start doing. But it's important everyone knows, if the bust I can't, the little asterisk is if we do a bust, it'll go into Nick's pocket. It all goes back into GGM. It's not going anywhere else. It's going back into GGM to help the community, because it's just the merch thing I always feel uncomfortable about. Like when we did do merch, we're going to try and see if in the future we can do it again. But whenever we're like asking people to pay for something, I always feel a bit uncomfortable because I'm like, everything should be free.
Hey,
but
Billy,
it's really good.
Give the people what they want. If they want a little plasticast merch of Nick.
But you look great, mate. I know you didn't get a proper look at it. You look great as a bust. And I said to when
Generous
when
with the
Breno-
hairline.
Yeah.
I was like, good jaw looked a bit stronger. I was like, hey, this is pretty good.
When Breno sent it to me, I was like, mate, a Roman Emperor suits me.
You'll see that. You'll see that as you're watching the episode, Billy. We need to keep going. You and Roman empires. Hey, Billy, what does healing actually feel like when you've only ever known chaos?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. My lived experience, I've got to get back onto my professional hat, but my lived experience of it is it feels safe and it feels calm and it feels okay. Like that's, I've had lots of variability in that, and that's what it feels like to me. And Yeah, there's a different way that these kids hold themselves when they get like that they talk about themselves, they feel about themselves, like that kind of self-narrative, self-esteem, self-confidence, like that's what we're aiming for. Do you know what I mean? For our kids and ourselves, remembering like that, one of the really important things we don't talk about enough on this pod is like, what do you feel like as a parent? I think a beautiful thing for you and I is we feel like we're pretty good parents. Do you?
Yeah, to have my moments. Yep.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good. Yep. Feel pretty good. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I feel like I'm putting in the work, and that's what I feel good about. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I'm conscious of it.
So there's evidence that will change the trajectory of your girl's future. The fact, the way you feel about yourself as a parent.
Gotcha.
And I reckon the majority of parents I meet in clinic do not feel like they're doing a good job. And so, that's what it feels like when you get to that healing point where you're like.
Speaking of healing, last question on shorts. What's a small, realistic first step out of survival mode?
Yeah, I reckon the first one, which we've spoken about a bit, is realizing you're in it. I'm just surviving. And then I think it's really important that you kind of do those little small acts of self-kindness. We've spoken a lot about self-compassion, which in my mind is like, how do we feel about ourselves? What's our internal voice saying and all that stuff? And that's really important to work on that. You have to actually do the work. It's not like I've just decided that starting tomorrow, I'm going to have a different way that I speak about myself internally, but also just what are those small acts of kindness, and those small acts of kindness need to be things that you just create space for and drop other things for, like the GP, where he's like, I'm just going to peel back my work a bit because, this is getting too much. You do them, don't you?
Which small acts of kindness to myself? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Try to. Only for that reason, and this is what we talked about in that other podcast this week, it's just like you got to like get yourself in a good spot and you'll be better for everyone else around you, right? Yeah. That's the point of it.
Totally, but I have to correct you a little bit there. You're putting a condition on it that it's for other people. Oh, it's got to be for you too.
Yeah, I love it. Yep.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? That is how you be compassionate to yourself. You go, actually, I'm doing this for me because I actually deserve to go and do this thing. But you know what I mean? As a parent, all of us are like, I can't do that. Especially mums. They're like, no. Because then even if you go and do it, you even go get a massage or something, you feel guilty about it. You're like, I should have been spending the time with my kids. I should have been doing something for them. I should have been getting the house clean or whatever. Anyway.
Excuse the slight lawn. It's a particularly early start here. And actually, the sun has just come up. Notice the light will change. Hey, Billy, we're into the longs.
Beautiful.
And I'm going to bash through these. Have read a few of them. Quite a few of them. And I'm ready to rock. Hey, legends. Thanks again for another awesome podcast episode. I'm a paediatric community OT. I'm privileged enough to support children in their home environments, which often means I see the rawness and reality of how other families are trying to cope. I often struggle with knowing what to say to parents or guardians who are just surviving getting through the day, let alone having the capacity to trial the strategies I'm recommending. Sometimes all I want to do is give them the biggest hug and cry with them. I admire the strength that each of the parents has day to day to keep showing up as their best self, even when their child is showing complex behaviours and emotions that is impacting the family with everything that they do. I guess my question is, what even is the right thing to say for a family who doesn't have the capacity or is trying everything but still feel as though they are failing? What do you say when they have lost hope of anyone being able to help them? What's the first step? Sorry, it turns out I have several questions. Thanks again, guys. This platform's incredible. I admire you both. Admire both of your knowledge, vulnerability, and compassion you share with the community. I only hope I can be half as good a parent and clinician as you both now.
God, yeah, occupational therapists are amazing. So this came through literally the same day this week that I saw a teenager who was crying in my room because he doesn't want to live anymore. And he says that he's like, I'm trying so hard and it's not getting better. And I was like, it's not because you're not trying hard enough. you know what I mean? Like, it's a really important bit that this kid and so many of us are like, I need to try harder. The reason he doesn't want to live anymore is because of what's happened to him, not because of what he's done or what he's not doing. And, you know, it's really important that we get a bit better as a community at saying, I'm so sorry that is happening to you. How can I help? And I said to him, I will be with you as long as I need to be for you to get through this, and we will figure it out together. You know, like, and I like, yeah. And that was probably one of the most emotional bits of my week, but it was probably one of the best bits of my week as well. You know, because I can hold space with that kid. You know, like I've had personal experiences with, you know, as a younger person and kid with suicidal people that I couldn't help. And I suspect I've gone into that space because I want to be able to know what to say and what to do. But just saying, even in less intense negative experiences, like, I'm so sorry, you don't deserve this. How can I help? You know, it's an interesting thing. I'm trying really hard to be a better partner, going back to that. And I find myself just saying to Annalise, how can I help? You know, like, I just want to help. And she's not struggling emotionally. She's just got 3 kids and, like, you know, trying to fit everything in. So when I'm in that space and I'm like, I roll in and I can see it's chaos, I'm like, how can I help? You know what I mean? It's like, it's an interesting thing. We often want to give advice and we often want to, like, because we're struggling ourselves, be like, it's going to be fine, you're going to get through this, or, you know, the crap of, like, other people have it worse, or look at all the good things about you. It doesn't actually help. Do you know what I mean? And you're just thinking about, like, I'm so sorry this is happening. You don't deserve to be experiencing this. I can see how much you love your kids. I can see how hard you're trying to get better. I think you're amazing. How can I help? We will face this together. That's probably the most therapeutic thing I ever do. It's not write a medication. It's not give a diagnosis. You know, I'm very lucky that the public clinic I sit in, I can say, I will see you as long as you need me to and want me to. You know what I mean?
Not really.
But it's amazing. Like, and it's healing for me because it's, you know, like, I'm catching these kids that, you know, I didn't get caught. And so, like, it's amazing, mate. Like, I feel like this overwhelming privilege, and the pod is a bit like that for me. You probably feel that bit of the pod of just, like, you and I are becoming a smaller and smaller part of the PCP community, but it's this huge privilege, isn't it?
It is.
And that's what all these people that work in this space, that's why they do it, not the pay, not how hard it is, not how detrimental it is to our mental health. It's the privilege of working with these families and these kids and being able to hold space and journey through with them. And they're amazing.
Awesome. Question 2, dear Billy and Nick, firstly, I'll start by saying a big heartfelt thank you for the work you continue to do and the important information you put out into the world. It encourages me to reflect, act and evaluate, and my family will be better for it. Now, on to my question. One about kids being in survival mode. We are a family of 5. We have 2 beautiful boys, 11 and 5, 1 independent little lady, 2. My gorgeous 11-year-old is my stepson and is with us a week on, week off basis. He has ADHD and ASD diagnosed 12 months ago. We're working with therapists to help set him up for success. Part of what led us down the assessment path was the dynamic between our 2 boys, particularly how our 11-year-old interacted with our 5-year-old. They love each other intensely, but last year, that started to shift as our 5-year-old started to use express his opinion and
use his voice to express.
Use his voice to express his opinion and want a voice in what they played or did together. Our 11-year-old's impulsivity is often targeted at his brother. There are challenges with sharing and a need for dominance. Earlier this year, we saw our 5-year-old have significant differences in behaviour and emotional regulation during the weeks his brother was with us versus the weeks he is not. What we witnessed was the guard being put up almost instantly when he interacted with his brother. He has a fight or flight mode, and it was always flight, right from the first interaction. I think this was the protective mechanism for him. However, now he's also spilled over to the weeks his brother isn't with us when he's faced with a scenario he is not happy with. I feel he is in constant survival mode. I worry about his mental health now and in the future. My husband and I are doing our best to set fair and loving boundaries, be positive role models, demonstrate healthy coping strategies, and be understanding of his feelings while being neuroaffirming. But to be honest, in those tough moments, I think we're in survival mode too. My question is, where to start? We want to teach our 5-year-old about neurodivergence and encourage understanding. However, we also want to show him it's not okay for him to be picked on or targeted, and his feelings of rejection, frustration, sadness and anger are valid. How do we start it to unravel the flight or fight reaction? I can see he has learned this protective in challenging time. I can see he's learned this is protective in challenging times. Any guidance would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like that kind of survival mode that gets built in us in the moments of like the relationships that we don't feel 100% physically or emotionally safe in. And the reason I included this is because we've experienced this in a completely typical fashion from Charlie with Heidi. Like we didn't expect it. We should have. But he's been quite jealous, and his space, especially his relationship with Annalise, has been challenged because he was the baby, and then overnight a baby came home. And he has been like classically getting in her face, being rough with her, trying to put his finger in her eyes and all that stuff, just like, and remember back to when Evie was doing that with him, I spoke about it on the pod. And it's interesting because we've been working on boundaries, and boundaries is what should exist with this kid, the 5-year-old, like boundaries that are like, no, you'll be safe in this space, and we'll give the level of support and attention required for you to feel safe, regardless of who it is, including your older sibling. But then thinking about the boundaries don't give us skills. Boundaries help us feel safe and secure to learn. They don't teach us what's needed to succeed in those environments. And, elevating that kid's voice, helping him do that, thinking about help seeking, when is it too much for him to navigate this on his own? But a beautiful thing has happened with Charlie where we have kind of enforced in him like gentle hands. And so I can't shield him completely from Heidi. Do you know what I mean? It'll just escalate him because he'll get even more frustrated. I'm not actually teaching him how to be with her. But a beautiful thing happened last night where Evie was really struggling in the bath and really upset because she'd hurt herself. And Charlie comforted her. And I've never really seen him do that directly. And it was really beautiful because then we could reinforce that specific thing and just be like, that's amazing. So, don't leave it up to the 5-year-old and the 11-year-old to navigate and learn those skill sets on their own, and just get in that space and be like, what are we actually hoping for you guys to do together, and how do we explicitly like make that our goal, and then get down and navigate that with you so that you succeed, and then back off the support. Okay. It's just an important thing about like survival and not just gritting through it.
Yep. I think I like that bit about like helping them do it. Don't just let them nut it out.
Yeah, or don't just think about safety. It's got to be like, cool, this is actually, because it impacts how we feel about each other if you stay in those cycles, and that's what's happening. That's why when that kid comes around, he's like on guard.
Hey, Billy and Nick, I'm sitting in my car feeling compelled to write this email after finishing your episode on survival. Please forgive my ramblings as I attempt to compose my thoughts into a question. Our second daughter was born 3.5 years ago. She had a rocky start to life. We almost lost her in her first few weeks. Thanks to an amazing team of specialists and surgeons at just surgery at just 4 months old, she is now a happy and thriving little girl. Although with a few ongoing mental health concerns that take up valuable family resources. Shortly after surgery, my mental health took a steep decline, and I tried to be the perfect mother and blame myself for her multitude of issues. I ended up so unwell that there was a time my husband would come home from work genuinely unsure if I would be alive or not. As a result of this, my daughter and I were admitted to a mother-baby unit for nearly 5 months, including a failed attempt to return home. My husband was left at home with our 2-year-old who couldn't quite understand why mum had to stay in hospital for so long. Occasionally, he has also had to take care of the baby as I was deemed too unwell to be allowed to care for her. Fortunately, I've been able to have access to an amazing support network which has helped me back to being a mother I want to be, as well as being able to return to work. I have worked a lot and continue to work a lot. with my therapist on self-compassion and letting go of things that don't matter and committing time and energy to the things that do matter. Throughout this time, my husband was under so much pressure. He was the sole income earner, had to keep the house running as well as looking after 2 kids and I. We've spent 3 years living in survival mode and yet still tend to disagree on what that means in a practical sense. When the house is messy, the dishes are piling up, there is washing to be done, he sees this as a failure and puts so much pressure on himself to fix this. I can see the fragility in life and choose to prioritise quality family time and enjoyment and connection with the kids, even if it means you can't see the floor through the toys some weeks. How do we find the balance of this for our family? Thank you for all the amazing work you do. I've shared your work with so many of my friends and family.
Yeah, I just want to say how amazing it is that people send in those really vulnerable stories. Like, you know, these, and we meet those parents where, they have to be admitted to wards and stuff. Like and I've done work on, mental health wards, and those people are just holding so much weight. There's actually a beautiful one of the tips, I don't know if you remember, speaks directly to that challenge of like the mess. But it is important to, I think, understand what is the different needs that we all have, and like the idea, because we spoke a lot about like the clean house and stuff, and there are some of us that like we function better if it's clean, but there's some of us where overall it's actually detrimental how much, stress it causes us to constantly be cleaning a house. And I fall into the second group where I'm just like,
Same.
I'm not enjoying my kids because I'm actually spending time worried about the mess, and then getting frustrated every evening about the mess. So I need to work on that. There's no quick fix where it's like just throw all the toys out or, you know what I mean, get some process, teach them how to. I'm not going to be able to teach a 2-year-old how to pack up toys after he's used them. You know what I mean?
I can't teach a 5-year-old, so good luck.
But you know what I mean? So I think like understanding that and just, thinking about what's the balance for all of us. But I because I'm taking so long on these, there's a beautiful one at the end that answers that question specifically.
Okay, cool. Hi, Dr. Nick and Billy. This will always get answered, this question.
This is now going to be hundreds. Dr. Nick and Billy.
Bit of fun. Hey, I was frantically cleaning my house whilst listening to your podcast and felt the need to stop and send this because I also need retraining that a clean house isn't everything. There's been many topics that have come and gone and have been very helpful and relatable to my family, but this one landed just exactly when I needed it most. I've heard myself and my husband talk about our feelings of failure and only just surviving in the last 2 weeks more times than I can count. I've shed tears before and have even left the house this morning and moments after collection from school. Sorry, I'm going to reread that. I have heard myself and my husband talk about our feelings of failure and only just surviving in the last 2 weeks more times than I can count. I've shed tears before we have even left the house in the morning and moments after collection from school. I know it's a season, but this tough time feels like is ongoing, and I don't have the answer. Let alone feel like I know which way is up. I'm a mum of 2 beautiful boys. My eldest is 7. He is cheeky and wild and kind and sensitive, awkward, and such a light of our lives. He's awaiting assessment for ADHD, his busy brain struggling with learning at school and day-to-day tasks at home. And his worries, being left alone, locked doors, confined spaces, are affecting our day-to-day. He struggles to take in information when asked a question. He often ignores us, or lately the new thing is having an answer excuse for everything, which I know is developmentally normal and shows he is clever, strong character, but it still makes it very hard to get anything done with an 11-month-old in tow. What would you like for breakfast? Shoes on for school. Don't touch that, it's dangerous. Look before you cross the road, etc. Huge emotional outbursts about the smallest things that lead to aggressive outbursts physically towards myself and my husband. He's also really into name calling. Idiot, stupid, you're the worst, mum, I wish you were gone, in jail, etc. Very hurtful and sometimes threatening comments. And by no means are we perfect, but we do our best to not model this behaviour towards him or each other in our home. His biological dad and I were separated when I was 18 months old, and he sees him once a fortnight. He also has another half-brother who he gets to see when he's with his dad. The behavioural outbursts and difficulties worsen on his return home, which we are used to now, and know it's to do with the environmental changes from place to place for him. And we do our best to always meet him where he is at with grace. The arrival of his baby brother last year, and now we are moving house. His teachers at school have left mid-year, has all been huge triggers of change and also worsened things for him. My concern is what I'm missing. I have learned through PCP under every outburst behaviour, emotion is a need. But where I struggle, I worry I don't know what this is for him, and I constantly feel like I'm failing him by not connecting the dots as to what it is he needs. He's behind in school. His literacy and numeracy he is getting extra support for his numeracy and literacy from his school, and they're very supportive of this, but it's affecting his self-esteem to the point where he doesn't want to try, says he can't do things well, calls himself names like stupid, and it breaks my heart. I try not to dismiss these comments when he says them around me, focusing on validating and talking through how they feel for him, but sometimes I feel it gets too wordy and he disconnects. He's believed to have likely dyslexia, his dad does, along with undiagnosed likely ADHD, some ASD traits, and worries, anxiety. Often I feel completely overwhelmed and overstimulated to the point where I don't know how to move forward. Sleep deprivation for my baby, adding fuel to the fire. Then I listen to your pod and feel not only supportive but also guilty for feeling like this is feeling guilty because others have so much more on their plate than us. I just want to know how to help him. His social relationships seem to be okay. He struggles at times with other stronger personalities like him. He seems to be drawn to these children most, but overall makes friends and plays well with others. We focus on what he loves and gets enjoyment out of: music, playing rugby, basketball, Beyblades and other toys, and I haven't seen any signs of withdrawal from things he enjoys. But due to his behavioural outburst, both verbal and physical, I'm often left feeling empty. It hurts me to say, but I often feel like we struggle to connect as mother and son, and that feeling of failure and shame is like no other. I just want to be what he needs, to help him feel better in who he is. And I know it isn't the right thing to say, but I want to make it easier for him because at the moment everything feels so hard for him and us, really. We are in full survival mode. I know it needs to start with me, but sometimes it's hard to know what that should look like. I don't know if there is even a question in this, but it has been therapeutic to say anyway. I can't thank you enough for the podcast. It really is so helpful and hopeful. And I mention you guys to anyone who will listen. Please never stop your amazing work you do.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things in that. And yeah, the name calling, makes me think of this week Evie was getting dropped off at daycare, and this kid, I'll change the name, this kid comes up to Annalise and is like, "Hi, I'm Sally." And Annalise is like, "Hi Sally, I'm Annalise and this is Yvette." And then she ran off, and when Annalise was leaving, she walked past Sally and was like, "See you, Sally." And Sally looked up and Annalise is like, "See you, poo-poo head." Annalise is like, how confident is that 4-year-old? Just throwing shade at an adult. Yeah. But yeah, so it is. On a more serious note, there's a couple of things with this one. One is that, yes. So this is not a criticism. This parent's doing amazing, but invest in safe, loved and celebrated, because there's just been so much change that this kid is probably feeling like the safety and predictability. And it's not about don't move house and don't do this and don't do that. It's about how can you give the kind of same thing that first reflection does of I will unconditionally support you and love you, and I'll go in when you're struggling, not kind of be upset and, whatever, withdraw. So the other thing is that there is clinical features of clinical anxiety are inability to focus and pay attention. anger, constantly needing reassurance. Like those are things. I'm not saying the child doesn't have ADHD. A lot of kids who have ADHD will also have anxiety. Some of the evidence shows 40 to 60% of kids that have one will have the other. You just can't access the higher functioning executive stuff if you're constantly anxious. So just checking, is it anxiety? My final thing on this one is that you're right. It does start with you and him. And just kind of thinking about, how do we succeed? How do I reduce the expectation of what success looks like so much that me and this kid are just doing something together that we're enjoying and we're succeeding at? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it comes back to that.
Do you do that with both the girls?
Well, I think it comes back to what we were talking about before, like what you mentioned before about just finding a way to enjoy them first.
Yeah, but you don't even have to jump on the train. Like, do you make an effort with that to like just enjoy each of them and succeed in little ways?
Yeah. One likes bike riding. I love it. And we just do it at all costs.
But
I just love it.
Even smaller moments than that, I think you do. In the house, just each day. What's something that's just joy?
Yeah, just robots on the ground stuff.
Yeah, where
Monsters.
it's not about brushing teeth. It's not about getting you to bed quicker. Like, but you know what I mean? Because you can't. Those are not the times where you're like, trying to compromise and negotiate with the little kid and all that stuff. It's about, is there some space somewhere else that I'm just 100% connecting with this kid for minutes? I'm talking about minutes, like, being able to find minutes, but also having the mental capacity yourself. That's where the selfishness comes in. If you can't find the mental capacity yourself to have minutes, then it's not because something's wrong with you. It's that you need more support than you currently have. Anyway.
Cool. Hi, Nick and Billy. Thanks to the amazing resource and community that PCP is. The language it has given our household to understand our children has been phenomenal and supported our growth as parents. I have a question for you regarding survival. But first, backstory. I have a wonderful husband and two beautiful boys. One who is colour and movement personified and needs support unmasking and regulating. The other is a puzzle master and rapid fact generator. And is also an incredibly sensitive child. Both are incredibly caring and intelligent children. We have always been a busy family and household, juggling schoolwork, travel, social events, extracurricular activities, until recently when an illness rendered me incapable of doing the most basic tasks. Medication has got me to the point of being able to empty the dishwasher, make school lunches and cook dinner occasionally. But I'm mostly housebound and unable to drive. The kids have witnessed parts of my health that have scared them. They both worry terribly about me, which breaks my heart. The impact of our family has been massive. We're incredibly lucky to have a friendship group that is exceptional and a family who is willing to take time off to travel and help us. This, however, also has its impacts on those who help us and their kids, who find it difficult to settle when people are coming in and out of our house on a regular basis. The greatest load, however, is on my husband, who is now carrying the majority of the parenting load while trying to care for me and hold down his full-time job. While these circumstances are new for us, I know this is the norm for so many. So I want to acknowledge this. The emotional load carried by everyone is massive and takes its toll. Our eldest has had a significant escalation in emotional outbursts, understandably, which terrifies our youngest, also understandably, and results in him running to his bedroom or mine and cower under the bed. While, thanks to you two and the incredible care team, GPs and psychologists, we have a language for this and strategies. It is also having a negative impact on both our children, and we can only manage a situation well if circumstances allow. My husband is not running out of the door to get everyone to school and work on time. I'm well enough to help, etc. My question is how to keep everyone well and whole in these circumstances, particularly when consistency and predictability is near impossible, yet exactly what is needed. Thanks in advance for your time and consideration for this long email and for the sacrifices each of you and your families are making in order for the PCP community to exist. And no, there is no expectation of an answer. The cathartic nature of writing this email has helped me in and of itself.
Yeah, so many people say that. And it's, I promise everything gets read by me. And it forms how I operate in clinic, I think about myself, but also what we do on the pod.
Yeah.
So I think, this is an idea about like how do we how do we see ourselves as a family unit and like everyone that makes us up? And there's a lot of single parents out there where they don't have another parent or a caregiver that's supporting them, and thinking about that. I think it's also like, I want to say this gently, but there's a difference between love and care. And like caregiving, you know, some of us grew up with like the idea of love being, I put a roof over your head, you got clothes, you've got food. That's not love. Do you know what I mean? Like, love is very different to that. We've done a whole episodes on love, so I'm not going to go too deep into that.
What is love?
Well, just thinking about like my love of you, my love of my kids, my love of Annalise is like how I feel about them and how I express that feeling towards them. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, and especially if you're telling someone, I put a roof over your head, I put clothes on your back, like, do you know what I mean? And but it is, a lot of people grow up with like being told that is love. And I think, you know, you can feel it in this person's question that they do have a lot of love for everyone around them, is thinking about their partner despite their own mental struggles, thinking about what's going on for their kids and all that stuff. But that alone is love. The way that that person frames that question and thinking about giving yourself a bit of a break and actually going, I am trying to figure out how to do this. That's how you hold everyone together. And then you think about, what does that actually look like? How do we talk about this? How do we have feelings like? And I talk about this with Annalise. I don't know if you do, but I talk about like, how are we going? Like, what can we do that'll be better? Like, we realised that when Heidi was born, we actually don't do well without plans. Like, we sit around, if we don't have a very full weekend, we feel like we've kind of let the kids down. I especially do, because I'm like, these are the only 2 days we get with them. If we just sit around and do nothing, like, so we go out and do stuff, because that's when Annalise and I function best, when there's like lots happening and all those things. And some people, that'll be really overwhelming. They'll be like, we can't do that many activities in a weekend. But that's kind of what we've learned is needed for us. Like, we just need to go out and think about doing stuff, and it just makes it easier for us to celebrate the kids and not get caught up in like how messy the house is, how much work I've got to do, because I can't be on my laptop on the weekends if I'm out trying to catch up on stuff. So I make a real effort on that. But I think that kind of difference, what is actually love? It's different to safety. It's different to caregiving. Part of it is celebrating kids, though. There is a common thing there, an overlap, and thinking about that's often what our expressions of love look like, is just celebrating who you are. Like when Charlie does the, you know, kind, caring thing to Evie, but also when he does something that's a bit of a mistake, you know, and being like, how do I just show my love then? How do I go into him and be like, it's not going to change how I feel about you? I've actually worked really hard to get good at that, about like, if they break something, I'm like, it's just a thing. Yeah. I didn't grow up with that. I was like, well, that's it then. You're not going to value your toys, you can't have any. Like, you know, all of that stuff. But I've worked really hard at being like, when they break something, because I can see them get a bit scared or they get a bit worried about what's going to happen, I'm like, it's just stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, something got torn, something got stained, something whatever. I'm just like, it's just stuff. And that's probably, anyone who sees me in public, that's probably justifying how disheveled I look.
Just thinking about when I was a kid, I used to break stuff. I used to hide it in the heat vents.
Oh, yeah. I used to hide something else in the heat vents.
What is that? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mum would be like, who broke it? And then they'd know it was me.
Yeah. I used to hide other things in the heat vents.
What?
I don't know if I can say that.
Well, don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Billy and Nick. Love your work that you do. I've listened to most of your episodes, and my wife and I find they're starting to shape how we parent our 2 neurodivergent ginger ninjas, aged 5 and 4. Yes, both 12 months and 2 weeks apart. The past 4 episodes have really resonated with us both on the stage we are at on the journey through life in a world that wasn't designed for our beautiful brains. For me, Gladiator was an eye-opener. Billy, your comment around stripping it all down to encourage our children to be safe, loved and celebrated really hit home. That was a good one, Billy. I like that one. I grew up in a broken home and attended 21 schools from kinder to grade 7. My dad was in earth moving and we travelled from contract to contract, and unfortunately was an alcoholic on occasions, abusive. He left when I was 8 years old. Stepdad number 2 often experienced bouts of what I would call roid rage, and as a young preteen was emotionally and physically abused to my mother and I, after my older brother left home, leaving me, a boy of 14 years old, protecting our mother, my little brother, age 4, from the constant fights and arguments. My little brother was eventually diagnosed with Asperger's, that on reflection looked like level 1 ASD, but I'm no expert. My stepfather was regularly abusive, and I recall days where after I put myself in the middle of 2 arguing adults, I had to take a few days off school and stay with my English teacher until I recovered, all the while hoping my little brother was okay without me. I left home at 16 after stepdad 2 and soon to be stepdad 3 decided to turn my hallway into a UFC octagon to fight it out. I realised at that moment there was no one here to help me anymore. If anyone was going to make a change, it had to be me. Turning adversity into opportunity, I graduated university and later completed a master's degree. I married young, had 2 beautiful kids to my first wife, who are now 17 and 14, both neurotypical and highly intelligent and thriving in not-so-pleasant split homes, 50-50 care and less than favourable senior school environments. I met my second wife 10 years ago and we have an amazing relationship. My wife was a late 30-year-old ADHD diagnosis and we've had to navigate many challenges together as we adjust to the new ways of communicating and managing our relationship. Our firstborn together came in 2020 at the height of COVID. We had a number of challenges with birth. We were very close to losing our little boy soon after birth. Miraculously, he recovered and is now the most amazing, kind, gentle ginger ninja who is diagnosed with ADHD level 2. Our second came 12 months later, a gorgeous little red-headed girl who has global development delay and, in my mind, a clear candidate for ADHD. Life, it seems, on a daily basis is survival for our family. I was made redundant from my job 2 years ago, but have managed to build a successful small business that requires me to be away 60 hours a week. My wife, an incredibly strong and smart woman, has had to quit her job to support our 2 little ones. Therapy is 4 days a week for both kids, OT, speech, nutrition, GP appointments, paediatricians, ECPD, etc., etc. So grateful to have a partner that supports and advocates for our children in a way that she does. She's truly amazing. We have no family close by that can support us, so we typically fly solo as a family unit. My mother lives not too far away, but has recently abandoned our family after I politely asked her to give my 4-year-old a moment to settle at a recent birthday lunch. He was having a mini meltdown. That was met with a barrage of abuse, saying I need to teach him discipline, manners and respect when they're out in public. I let it slide due to our ignorance. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. But after a dozen or so text messages saying how it's my wife's fault, our little ones are the way they are, and how daycare has turned them into disobedient children, enough is enough. It's disappointing society has not yet fully grasped how to support people who are neurodivergent, let alone your own mother. To avoid going out in public in fear of outcome, every parent of neurodivergent kids knows this feeling, so I won't go into detail. I've ranted long enough already. Every day feels like a battle. Educators say they're fine at kinder, so it must be an us issue. Or my 4-year-old just learned poor behaviours from her brother, which has a huge psychological impact on my wife, who already struggles with her own internal mental health battles. We're so lucky to have support through NDIS. I'm grateful for our allied health team that is not always afforded to families. But right now, while in the thick of it, my wife and I are tired of holding the shield and wielding the sword to protect, nurture and advocate for our kids. I'm tired of not being emotionally available for my 17 and 14-year-olds who are passengers in this journey. So my question is, what advice do you have for 2 struggling parents who are fighting together, waiting for the next gladiator to enter the arena called life, a world not designed for our beautiful children? Thank you so much for everything you do for our community. In my dark times, you blokes are the light that keep pushing me forward towards the light. P.S. Billy, you'd be pleased to know when both of our cups are empty and the ninjas are bouncing off the walls in emotional dysregulation and it seems like nothing in the parenting kit bag is working, we'll look at each other and whisper, what would Billy do? You're both amazing. Thanks for taking the time to read this.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I often practically, but also psychologically in my mind, think, what would Nick do? Often I come to you and be like, what would you do? And you often give me the advice that I needed. So you're the person that's behind me. Far out. I got a bit emotional. I've read that so many times, but I got a bit emotional, and I'm making this whole episode about me, but God, I don't relate to that person as a kid and as an adult. Hectic. And I think that it is not your job to break cycles of generational trauma. It is not your job to stand there with your partner and wait for the next opponent that comes through, whether it's a funding problem, non-inclusive environment. Oh, it must be you guys because they're fine at school. And this is the thing. This is not about you changing. It's kind of the theme of the things. That's not the point. It's the point of those of us that have the capacity, understanding how to actually help others. That's what we all need to do. And I don't do this in clinic. Like, clinic is the most inefficient way to do this. Wait 3 years to meet the kid, and then I get an appointment with them. And then if I'm lucky, I can see them again 2 to 3 months later. It is ridiculous that all of these amazing professionals that have this skill set need to come out of those spaces and help us get to these kids earlier. That is multi-generational trauma that kid has experienced, and now is his dad who is trying to break the cycle on his own. I can't break it on my own. I've done 14 and a half years of university in this space. I've been 20 plus years working with these kids. I train other specialists in this stuff. I cannot break it on my own, so you cannot break it on your own. Over 70% of kids have experienced one form of adverse childhood experience: abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. It is the biggest predictor of adult mental health. Like, in Australia, 1 in 5 kids has experienced 3 or more of them. I'm one of that 20%, and so many people are out there. And if we don't figure out a better way to get to these kids earlier, and it's not their parents, those guys making the hallway the octagon, they were little kids that were not destined for that future. They sent up hundreds of flares, and we as a society did not come around them. And it's not a lack of resources. I can't say this professionally with my hat on, but I can with GGM. There is enough resource out there to get to all these kids. We just need to start prioritising it. We need to start taking the blame off parents that they need to parent better. They need to be more disciplined. They need to, be firmer with their kids. We need to come around and teach them how to do this stuff from actual expertise, not influencers that are just trying to make cash off them or people that are pretending they have credentials or making up research findings. Like, it's really important that this gets prioritised. It'll change our world. That's how you break the cycle, not on your own. So, reach out and look for the people that will help you. The people, this is why, the autism community is one of the strongest, and the deaf community. They're just amazing at fiercely looking after those people. They are units that are tougher than their individuals because of that. And we need to get better at reinforcing those and building other ones so that people can look around and see this is where help is, this is where help's coming. And taking away the shame of putting your hand up and saying, I need help. The amount of kids in the classroom that just can't put their hand up and say I need help because they're worried about the consequences of it. And if we pretend and have posters that say we're inclusive or we don't tolerate bullying or something, and then it happens and there's no repair, there's no healing process, that's worse. Take the posters down. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, I didn't realise I was going to soapbox. I think it's just because I just went back to my childhood listening to that question. Yep. But it's really important. It's not about that parent getting better, working harder, staying in the gladiatorial arena longer. It's about other people going in there with them. You know what I mean? Anyway. Cool. Sorry. All right, let's tips. Yeah, let's do tips. And then, well done, mate. They were beautifully read. And beautiful questions coming in. I'm sorry for all the ones that I couldn't get to. Okay, tip 1. Hi, Dr. Billy and Dr. Nick. Great app. Finished survival on my way home from work today. I draw such strength and compassion from you both parenting and in my work as a kids doctor. It's life-changing stuff. I really can't thank you enough. Firstly, I just want to pop in here as a reminder to Dr. Billy to be kind to yourself. As you're reading through the buttload of emails that we no doubt come through, totally get your feelings. They're so valid and relatable, but also just a wee reminder to know that you're enough, just as you are right in this moment. Even if you never did anything again, and even if you never did any of this, you and Nick have already changed the world for the better. God, I wish I could do that. Secondly, I just wanted to share a thing I've been doing with my almost 3-year-old. My little girl is sweet, shy, kind, and so imaginative, but has been struggling with daycare, and rather than thriving, I feel like she's just surviving in it at the moment. Thought I'd share a strategy which might help anyone else in this situation. We've been doing a drop-off routine for the past 5 months now where we sit on the bench outside daycare, have a snack, check in with her feelings, acknowledge the worry, and then do some verbal affirmations prior to going through the daycare gate. I start and say something like, it's okay to be worried. Your worry is part of you, but it's not all of you, because you're so brave and kind and can do this. Then I get her to say out loud, I'm brave, I'm kind, I'm awesome, and I can do this. And then we run in. The running is something she initiated. Sometimes she doesn't want a bar of it, so I say it for her and hug her close. And sometimes she's so into it, she yells at the top of her lungs. We've been doing the same drop-off week in and week out now for the past 5 months, and I think it's slowly starting to pay off. She still screams at the actual transfer and tells me how hard her day was and how hard drop-off is every evening. But sometimes when we see other people struggling with something, she tells them that they should say, I'm brave, I'm kind, I can do this, which I think is a good sign that it's perhaps slowly working. I hope that when she struggles in the future, she will hear a kind, compassionate inner voice and know that even when she's in the middle of something hard, she's deserving of a compassionate inner voice no matter what. Good thoughts to you both, and congrats to Billy on the birth of Heidi. So stoked for you and Annalise. Amazing.
That one got me. Hey, Nick and Billy, it's taken me quite some time to find peace with the mess and chaos of my home with my beautiful 3-year-old boy and 11-week-old girl. When my boy started to crawl, I realised he connected and played through his space so much better when there was mess from toys. I now think of the space in this way. Similar to nature, living things thrive in a diverse ecosystem. A diverse ecosystem is the toys laid out and played with throughout the house, and my toddler thrives in this environment. Don't get me wrong, every week or so we crack and clean up and reset, but it's really helped me to accept the ecosystem my toddler creates for himself, and it has given us one less thing to achieve each day before bed, the dreaded pack up. Thank you, Nick and Billy. You're both helping to create a kinder world.
I just thought that was so cool.
The ecosystem.
That actually helped me.
Well, you know, I'm
Don't disturb the ecosystem.
I am passionate about compost, right? It's like my absolute favourite thing. And in fact, like, you're not meant to disturb the earth. Like, you know, you turn it to break it down. But if you actually just want the worms to survive and do their thing, you just sort of let the worms do their thing. Well,
Yeah.
I have a new view on that.
So don't worry, mate. Stop trying to teach the 5-year-old to pack up. Don't disturb.
Trying to teach you all ages in our house. Hang on. Not for now.
All right, cool. There's 2 to go. I'm going to read both of them because only one of them came in 15 minutes before this. The reason this one made it for people that don't know is that, my mum had a very similar journey. She ran away from her family as a teenager and got on a 6-week boat journey to land here from Ireland, pregnant. Landed in St Kilda for Australian players, and my older brother's dad hit the road, never met him. So she was young as a parent, on her own as a teenager, still a kid herself here. It's just good context for this amazing person's story.
Go for it.
Hi, Nick and Billy. Thank you both for the most recent episode. I'm a big fan of the podcast and have been listening since just before the birth of my second child, who has just turned 1. The podcast is what I would listen to during the long night feeds with both of your voices, keeping me very good company. People still apologise when they're like, I fall asleep to the sound of you guys.
Okay, people go, love the podcast. I go, you go travel sleeping, do you?
Hopefully it's not the content. It's the tones.
Dulcet tones.
It's the dulcet tones.
Dulcet tones.
I will begin by apologising if this is too long. I've never written in before, but this week's topic compelled me to. I was so glad to hear the topic was around self-compassion, as it is much more an important topic, and I just wanted to share some of my experience in case it might be of benefit to another listener. It completely resonated with me when Billy talked about how our history shapes our self-viewpoint. I grew up in a small town in Ireland, and I was born in the early 1990s to an unwed teenage mother. Irish society in general in that period was very unforgiving. The decision was made that I would live with my grandparents while my mother went to college. When she left for college, I was around 6 months old. However, she went on to move to a different part of the world for work, and soon after college, I remained with my grandparents, who had since become mum and dad. I grew up as the youngest sibling in a loving and caring family with lots of aunts and uncles who I call my sisters and brothers. My family situation was never hidden from me or from anyone else outside the family. Although I was surrounded by love and had a very typical and happy childhood in lots of regards, I was also very anxious and a quiet child who found it very difficult to be able to articulate or express how I felt. I masked lots of different types of emotions. I was the child who always wanted to be perfect, setting impossible standards for myself and berating myself when I could not achieve the impossible. From self-reflection as an adult, I can see I was trying to lessen the burden of myself on my family, or at least that is what my thought process was then. From a young enough age, even if I was expressly loved and wanted by all the people closest to me, I felt the weight of being another mouth to feed and another child to put through school, etc. This was placed on me by me as a child, but as an adult, I have a better understanding of the influence the wider society played in forcing this narrative upon me. In my child and teenage years, I heard people who barely knew me speak about how I should be so grateful that I wasn't aborted or put up for adoption, how I should be so thankful for my grandparents, my mum and my dad, for taking me in, or how I wasn't like my other siblings and I wasn't a true member of my family, with someone once even mentioning to me the Magdalene laundries. They were like asylums that people, yeah. None of this ever came from my family, only external people. And as a now adult, I can't fathom how another adult thought this was okay to say to anyone, let alone a child. By the time I hit my early 20s, I had such a low viewpoint of myself that I was really struggling. I was struggling in my identity of who I was and where I fit in, similar to a lot of people in their late teens and early 20s. But I was also really struggling in my relationship with my birth mother. Over the years, there'd been visits from her to me and me to her, but our relationship struggled to find a definition of what it was and what our future course would be. I felt I was constantly asking for more than she could give. In retrospect, it must have been a very challenging situation for her to also be in, and as an adult, I can see that life was also not always kind to her. A turning point came in my mid-20s after a bad panic attack. My then boyfriend was trying to help me through a particularly overwhelming day and a period in general. He asked me two simple questions. Why are you so hard on yourself and what does it achieve? These are two questions that I'd never asked myself before. The answers were I was hard on myself because I felt like I never truly belonged, that I was a burden and had achieved nothing apart from panic and misery. These two questions, however, reframed how I viewed myself and how I fitted into society when I delved deeper into myself. The fact of the matter is I did not choose to be born. I had no influence on the outcome, and I'm not to blame for how society views me. The shame and guilt I felt for even being born up to that point was immense. The type of shame and guilt can wrap your brain into thinking that you are not worth the clothes on your back, that you're not worth the relationships you have built with people, that you're just not worth the effort of anyone else's time. Taking a step back, reevaluating and ultimately having compassion for the people who said all of those things that hurt so badly resulted in me being able to be compassionate to myself. Someone must have hurt each and every one of those people quite badly for them to think the way they do, and therefore I feel sorry for them. 10 years on from this in my life, I'm writing you just weeks after the death of my birth mother and months after the death of my mum. Life is still tough and full of challenges, particularly moving through large amounts of grief and busy family life with a 4 and a 1-year-old. However, I'm safe in the knowledge that wherever it happens, kindness and compassion for others and myself will always win over shame and guilt, even if those monsters lie dormant and do rear their heads sometimes. It's not as easy as just telling yourself to think differently, but I feel like I'm slipping into the shame and guilt spiral. I always come back to those two questions. Why are you so hard on yourself and what does it achieve? I'm very grateful to my now husband for asking those two important questions all those years ago, because if he hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to reconcile with myself, be able to become self-compassionate and form a much better relationship with my birth mother. She died very young, her early 50s, and I feel like I've been robbed of time with her to build our relationship even further. But I'm so glad through having compassion for her and myself, our relationship was able to improve and was brought to a much better place over the last 10 years before she passed. People say that society is worsening and that we should go back to the good old days where people were respectful and children were seen but not heard. I believe, however, that with each subsequent generation, we're gaining a better understanding of what it means to be human and how to raise people who will flourish by listening to those previously unheard children. I thank you both so much for helping both wider society and myself in this journey and providing practical ways to make the changes for the better. This comes from the little girl in me who worried endlessly about expressing any emotion, who grew up to be a woman who has a 4-year-old who does not live in fear of saying I'm angry with you or I'm sad or any other emotion. No matter how messy the house is, how chaotic getting out of the door in the morning is, or how challenging bedtime is, why does it always take forever? That for me is one of the biggest Winslows of my life. Whew. Yeah, far out. Yeah, I literally got that 15 minutes before I ran out the door to go for a run. And what an amazing person. Far out. And even just that story healed parts of me that I haven't been able to get to. So it's amazing. Yeah, I can't even I saw a kid in clinic this week who's been kicked out of home. He's 13. He's a bad kid, kicked out of home, kicked out of school, went to one set of grandparents, they kicked him out. And then this beautiful other grandmother rolls in. She's got other grandkids with her, same kind of thing. None of these kids are hers. And she just loves him. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, he's where he needs to be now. You know, and he's at a better school, a rough school, a tough school, the best schools. And shout out to those schools. We're very lucky that GGM gets supported by leadership in some of those schools because we're building out how we make this better. But yeah, what an amazing, amazing parent and person. All right, last one. One beautiful thing the PCP community has done for me specifically is tell me to stop apologising for crying. Do you remember that? Yeah. It was just quite hard practically, and then I was struggling to read the words through tears. All right, this is everyone is of equal value in PCP, but this is a very valued family to the PCP community. Yeah.
I think I know what it's going to be.
Yeah. Hi, Nick and Billy. And this is the last thing. Hi, Nick and Billy. Thank you for pausing to provide space and acknowledgement for the fact that many of us are spending large parts of our parenting lives surviving, not thriving. I wanted to share a reflection on our journey of survival. While it might be easy to think our experience is in the margins, there are countless parents facing the ultimate survival battles either for themselves or for their children, and I'd like to give a voice to this particular challenge while navigating parenting at the same time. I speak from my experience, acknowledging that every story is different. Our particular story isn't common. The short version is that our 14-month-old had a simple fall from waist height, hitting his head. He was taken in a helicopter to the Children's Hospital, had an emergency neurosurgery and stayed in ICU. Since the accident now 2 years ago, he's had a subsequent 9 surgeries with many hospital admissions and twists and turns. Hospitals have hundreds of beds. These don't sit empty overnight. When most of us go about our daily lives, it's easy to forget that common reality. All over the world, every moment, someone's life is changing unexpectedly. While our journey has ended with a positive outcome, I want to acknowledge the inevitability that people will be listening from a hospital somewhere, sleeping next to a child or forced to sleep away from their child as they need to stay themselves. I also wanted to acknowledge that not everyone is as fortunate as us to have a positive end. While I felt the pressing fear of that loss, to experience it would be a survival battle in its own league. Parenting while facing these sorts of challenges is multifaceted, and I wanted to share some reflections. Tragedy has a way of creating laser focus on what is important, and it's surprisingly easy in these scenarios to cut out the noise and the expectation that life often places on us. I've always liked the metaphor that in life we're juggling many balls, But some are tennis balls and will bounce back up, and some are glass that you can't let drop. I believe one of the things that makes survival in modern parenting so hard is the number of balls that we're trying to juggle and the misconception that so many are glass. Tragedy shows you just how many can actually bounce. Many people would say to me, I don't know how you can keep going, but the simple reality is there is little other choice. When there is a child that needs you to show up and be strong for them, you show up. We always found the mantra, reduce demands to increase capacity, a comfort to keep going. In its hardship, that it feels like we're needing to do the best parenting. Our children face uncertainty and they look for us to us for stability. The weight of that is challenging, but safe, loved and celebrated has the core of this, and it's a helpful framework to focus on. For those wanting to support others but not knowing how, I encourage anyone to provide a space to simply listen and acknowledge the hardship rather than trying to fix it with positivity. As humans, we have a strong desire to do something to fix things as well as avoid discomfort for ourselves. I can't tell you how many times it's been commented to me that we're so fortunate to have our hospital system, and while absolutely true when you're in it, fortunate isn't an overwhelming feeling. More often than not, simply providing a compassionate space to share the most valuable thing you can do. If you don't know what to say, acknowledging that simple fact is completely fine and authentic. The impact of hardship is generally felt for months and years. Often people are flooded with initial support, and this drops away as everyone returns to their busy lives. I encourage listeners to pause and consider a small gesture of support for someone that has had it tough. We've needed every nugget of PCP knowledge to weather our storm, and thankfully we were long-time listeners before it started. We've co-regulated daily, we've worked through the anxiety of his sibling, we've spoken through grief, we've pretend played hospitals and surgery endlessly, navigated tantrums and all of the big and very real feelings. We've learnt so deeply into attachment, seen the definition of love's pillar of commitment all around us on the wards of the Children's Hospital. We've managed our own mental health, including sourcing psychological support. But the hardest part of going through this trauma is having to show up as a parent at the same time. For us, PCP has been more than a single topic, but a general parenting philosophy and framework that guides us daily with the tiny voices in our head saying, what would Nick and Billy do? Nick and Billy will be forever in your debts. Thanks for nearly tapping me out of that one, but yeah, I just didn't think it was fair to give it too cold. Yeah, I don't know what to say after that. It's just like, yeah, I think it's such a beautiful analogy. We think so many balls are glass, but they're not. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, it's such a helpful thing to me. I don't know.
They'd have the best reflection. They're amazing, that couple.
Yeah.
Met them a couple of times, and yeah, tremendous.
Yeah.
Dealt with a lot.
Yeah, but yeah, they're doing way more for PCP than PCPs. They're doing way more for me than PCPs do for them. Yeah, so yeah, and especially some of the stuff they sent that was a bit more personal, which I have to show you at the end of this. Cool.
Got a movie?
No. I know what the topic is, but I'm trying to find the right movie. I thought I did it, but we're changing it up a bit. If anyone's keen to sponsor the pod, we've got some really cool stuff coming, but we're just trying to fit it to the right sponsors. Gotcha. So we've got some amazing sponsors, and so that's going to shift things away a bit. But yeah, we're really keen to kind of highlight some of the amazing stuff that's happening in the community. Great. So yeah. Cool. So
Leave it at that. Thanks very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the reflection, and we're back with a new topic in a fortnight. Speak to you then.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.